Om Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmaswarupini avatara varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha. So I'm very happy that after a short period we are resuming our classes. I was discussing Yogachara system during the last few sessions, and today I am planning to discuss mindfulness as discussed and described in the second chapter of Dhammapada. But before that, a few words about the foundational text within Buddhism that directly describe this mindfulness. I think after the second chapter, the Dhammapada, which is a chapter on mindfulness, about 12-13 verses in Pali. After that, we will discuss Satipatthana Sutta, which is actually the most important and foundational text, one of the most important foundational discourses in Buddhism on mindfulness that we will discuss later. It's a Pali canon text, traditionally found in Majjhika Nikaya, and it lays down a systematic method of cultivation of mindfulness. Sati itself means smriti or awareness. That's the idea behind. We'll discuss later. So, a few words about this important text. Though we are not going to discuss Satipatthana Sutta today, but still, because it is the most important text on mindfulness, so a few words are very relevant. So the term, the name of the text, Satipatthana Sutta itself means discourse on being established in mindfulness, or discourse on establishing of mindfulness, or foundations of mindfulness, upasthana, in foundations. So it's a guide for meditation designed to cultivate a clear, continuous awareness of body, feelings, mind, and the entire mental phenomena. How to remain in a state of awareness and also be aware of the fact that everything is momentary, and so how to remain detached while being aware of it. So this is a kind of meditation. When we try to practice this, what happens is our mind remains unaffected by the phenomena of thoughts, emotions, and feelings, and natural phenomena around us. If we are not aware, then we may be trapped. If you are attached, then also we will be trapped. So when you are aware of something, the phenomena, at the same time, based on your awareness of their fundamental momentary nature, you keep yourself detached from it. So that is the psychological method employed here. Being aware of it, it doesn't mean we are attached to it. You are not linked, you are not bound. You are aware. But you are also aware of the fact it comes and goes. So it doesn't stay. So you are not linked to it, you are not bound, you are not entangled. So the power of detachment helps you to remain aware and also detached. So the Satipatthana Sutta has a profound influence on modern mindfulness. Of course, it emphasizes clarity of practice, meditation, and so on. Of course, you have to keep in mind that Yogachara system, by its very definition and by the, if you go by the word meaning of the term Yogachara, yoga means in a meditative process, you are in a contemplative meditative mode. Achara means practice. So practice of meditation. So that's why Yogachara itself is essentially a science on meditation. Um, Please remember, I know because we didn't have classes for some time. So we have to recapitulate a few important points we discussed earlier. We discussed the Mahayana system, the Shunyavada. Of course, this also belongs to Mahayana tradition. Yogachara also is a Mahayana tradition. Yogachara is more of a subjective idealism. Mahayana has element in it. I mean, Shunyavada also has got elements of subjective idealism, but Shunyavada doesn't accept anything. Everything in this world is devoid of anything essential, devoid of any inherent essential existence. So in that sense, everything is Shunya. Shunya doesn't mean what we may mean by the English word nothingness or emptiness. Shunya implies that everything in this empirical phenomenal world is devoid of any inherent lasting existence. In Yogachara system, they accept the subjects but they deny the object. Things exist only when we are aware of their existence. Two great philosophers, Vasubandhu and his half-brother Asanga. Of the two, maybe Asanga is more prominent because he is the author of the well-known book Yogachara Bhumi. And Vasubandhu, his half-brother, is the author of another very important foundational text of Yogachara philosophy as a whole, that is Vijñapti Matrada Siddhi. So, this is just a few background information about Yogachara system and the most important foundational text in Pali, in Manchika Nikaya, it is called Satipatthana Sutta. Now we are coming to Dhammapada. So these two important texts are important. The second chapter deals with Appamada Voggo, we call Appramada. Appramada becomes Appamada in Pali. So it means always remain in a state of wakefulness, free from any kind of pramada, any mistake, any fault line. So it comes in the Tripitakas. Tripitakas are the three Pali canonical traditions of Hinayana Buddhism primarily. That is Sutta Pitaka, Vinaya Pitaka, Abhidhamma Pitaka. So in the Sutta Pitaka, there is one section called the Khuddaka Nikaya. So Dhammapada is a part of this Khuddaka Nikaya. So I suppose, believe that each verse is spoken by Buddha himself, and then it was reported by other bhikshu monks later. So altogether in the Dhammapada there are 423 verses and 26 chapters. Now we will discuss a few things about this. As I mentioned, total 26 chapters and 423 verses. And the second chapter deals with, as I mentioned, this idea of remaining in a state of awareness or wakefulness. So mindfulness in Dhammapada means developing this quality, the mental quietude, that helps practitioners of meditation to restrain negative impulses and how to prevent these negative impulses from becoming negative actions. So this is something very interesting. Psychologically, it has got a great relevance. When we are aware of what is going on in our mind, and when we can watch it, then we can restrain it. So very often, to give an example, when somebody is angry, he identifies himself with anger. So he is not aware of the fact that he is getting angry. Because the distinction between anger and a person's mind disappears. Mind or the personality of the person, the angry person, becomes totally identified with anger. But suppose he can sit and contemplate, and in his mind, any of these negative impulses like greed, anger, aversion, any of these happen to occur. And if he is aware of it, he is creating a gap between him and his anger. His anger gets objectified and he is the subject. So he knows that he becomes aware of angry thoughts emerging in his mind. And then he is able to detach himself from his angry thoughts. And then he can prevent himself from identifying with the angry thought, and he won't do any negative actions. So this is a very interesting principle. The problem is that we identify ourselves with our impulses. Yogachara system as a subjective idealism tells you that all these objective phenomena are essentially unreal, except the awareness of this that emerges in your mind. The Vijñapti Matrata Siddhi is the name of the text of Vasubandhu. Vijñapti means Vijñanam, the knowledge, the awareness, the platform on which all these phenomena appear to exist for a moment and then disappear, and some other objects, other phenomena follow. So you're always aware of the essentially momentary nature of all these. And when you are aware of the momentariness of it, what happens is you're able to detach yourself from it. It doesn't affect, your mind remains calm and quiet. So even if a person is greedy, he can prevent his greed from becoming an action, a greed-oriented action, because he's aware of it, and it's not good for him to be greedy, it's not good for him to be angry, so he's able to restrain his impulses, angry or greedy impulses. So that's why it is mindfulness becomes a foundation and also a sustaining force for ethical conduct and spiritual development. As mentioned in the second chapter of Dhammapada. The third chapter itself deals with mind, with Chitta Vagga. It also includes a lot of these ideas, but the main focus on mindfulness is found on the second chapter. So, the second chapter teaches that awareness and careful attention are essential for overcoming suffering. Buddha's sole purpose was to go beyond suffering, to make sure that the suffering ceases to exist. And this is possible only by practicing Ashtanga Marga, the Eightfold Disciplines. And among the Eightfold Disciplines, Samyak Smriti is very important. And mindfulness is linked to Samyak Smriti, the right memory or the right awareness. That's what it is. So, of course, the opening line itself emphasizes the role of mind in shaping all our experiences. So now we will take up a few important verses. I think that will be better. So this if you look at the Dhammapada, you find the word mindfulness is not what is used for appamada. It means wakefulness, or maybe called heedfulness, vigilance, alertness. All these terms may be used in different translations. But appamada itself means the opposite of pramada. Pramada is a Sanskrit word. The first verse itself is Appamatta na miyanti ye pamatta tatha mata. That's what it means. The second line. The first version is Appamadu amadam padam pamadu machino padam. Appamatta na miyanti ye pamatta tatha mata. Now, if Sanskrit may be easier for us to understand, especially this. In Sanskrit, it would be something like Apramadu amrudam padam, pramadu mrityohu padam. So, actually, Pali is only, let us say, maybe Pali can be called a kind of unrefined or unprocessed, unsophisticated, the earlier version or the common people's version of Sanskrit. Sanskrit that we use today was highly restructured grammatically and even in terms of phonetics were restructured and refined by Panini in the 9th century BC. The Pali is an ancient language used by common people. So Buddha lived even after Panini, the Greek grammarian restructured the grammatical system after writing Ashtadhyayi in the 9th century BC. But Buddha spoke not the language of Pandits or scholars, but he spoke the language of the common people. So he mostly spoke in Prakrit, and after the first Buddhist council, a few years after Buddha's passing away, all these teachings which are still memorized, still in the memory of many Buddhist monks, were recorded in Pali script. That's what is called Tripitaka, the three baskets, Sutta Pitaka, Vinaya Pitaka, Abhidhamma Pitaka. So here what the meaning is this: apramada, wakefulness, is the road, the way to immortality. That is, amudam padam, main in Sanskrit means amadam padam. It is the road to immortality. So, when you are practicing mindfulness, you are approaching deathlessness, immortality, because you are on the way to identify, to realize your own immortal dimension. That is nirvana. Otherwise, we may, if you don't practice mindfulness, we may get entangled, trapped and bound by empirical experiences. And that will create samskaras, desires, clinging, trishna, all this. And that again become the cause of rebirth. And rebirth means again suffering, because being embodied, going through pain and pleasure, sorrows and joyful experiences in one life, and again carrying the whole burden along with you and being reborn again. That is samsara, this praditya samutpada cycle. Being born, carrying samskaras from previous life, accumulating new samskaras, new impressions, new tendencies, and again continuing this journey after death, again being reborn. So all this can be stopped when you practice mindfulness, because the empirical experiences they're not transformed into samskaras, so your mind remains unattached. Remember, real non-attachment, real freedom from attachment is possible only when you are aware of it. When you are not aware of it, we can get trapped and entangled. So, when you practice mindfulness, you are aware of everything, and then you are able to remain non-attached, unbound, not entangled by what is going around. So they did not deposit new samskaras, new desires, new trishna in your mind. So what happens is, that is the road for enlightenment. So that's why, so mrityoho padam means machuno padam. That is in Pali. So if you are not wakeful, if you are not practicing mindfulness, if you are not mindful, what happens is, it is the way to death. That's why it is said, pamado machuno padam, means pramado mrityoho padam. That is in Sanskrit. Pramada. Pramada could mean many things. Unconsciously or consciously, we may get bound, may be caught by karma, by samskaras, which again fuel this continuous journey in this wheel of samsara. So, lack of mindfulness, lack of wakefulness becomes the cause of death. Means spiritually, when you continue being born, suffering, enjoying, again suffering, dying, again reborn, that is death. When you attain nirvana, that is enlightenment. So that's an important point. It's very similar to Indian Advaita philosophy. In Advaita, of course, I don't want to refer everything to Advaita. In Advaita, being embodied, being born as a human being with this physical body itself is an impediment, is a negative factor. Without spiritual awareness, if a person is born fully identifying himself with the body-mind complex, that is like death. On the other hand, when you get out of this, when you attain moksha, that is real life. That means existence, sat, is a real life. The other is non-existence, asat. So, apamado amadam padam, pamado machuno padam, apamattana. So, those who are practicing mindfulness, namriyante, they don't die. They go beyond death. They attain immortality. And those who are not practicing mindfulness, those who are not practicing wakefulness, they are already dead. Edam visesado nyatva apamadam miha pandita apamade pamodandi ariyanam gochare rata. Some of these words are very similar. Some of them, ariyanam become ariyanam in Pali. But I am not going to give the Sanskrit translation necessarily, because that will long time. So the wise, that is, those who realized this outstanding feature of apamada, I mean this the wakefulness, what happens is they are drawn to such spheres of activity and they practice the way of the noble ones, the enlightened ones, Aryana means. So that's the idea behind. So this distinction helps people to rejoice in mindfulness, and they are able to live in the realm of noble ones, Aryana, I mean those who are enlightened ones, Tathagatas and others. Te jayido sadatiga ninjam diggaparakamaha putsandi dhira nibbanam yogakshemam anuttamam. Yogakshemam anuttamam, so your fine means the incomparable state. Such wise people, the meditative people, those who are meditating, those who are practicing mindfulness, those who are persistent in practicing this, the firm in their effort, you can find those words. The dhyayino sadhadika nijjam, digga parakrama, those who are firm and strong in the practice of these virtues. What happens is, they attain supreme bliss, supreme security. Because they are wise, they are meditative, and they are also very persevering. There's a Fusanti Dhira Nibbanam. All these terms are used. Those who are brave, firm, persistent, and steadfast in their practice, they attain nirvana. Nibbanam, Pali, nirvanam is Sanskrit. That is supreme peace. Nirvanam is the ultimate goal of all practices. So that we have to keep in mind Buddha's Four Noble Truths. And also Eightfold Path, Eightfold Disciplines. I mean, there is grief, and there is a cause for this grief, there is a way out, and the way out is nirvana. Again, we have to remember, when we translate dukkha, Chattvari Arya Satyani, there is dukkha. Buddha did not mean dukkha as it is frequently translated into English as sorrow. That will be a very, very, very fragmentary meaning of what Buddha meant by dukkha. Dukkha is the feeling that comes to you when you realize all that you consider to be valuable and magnificent in this world, all these are kshanika or momentary, non-everlasting. That's the meaning. Non-everlasting. What Shunyavadins called, samvruddhi satyam. That means all empirical, everyday experiences. They are momentary, including our life, our body, everything. When you realize this, if you are an evolved person, then you feel a desire for something which is more lasting. And you realize that what you now experience, what you have around you right now, is momentary, not everlasting. And from that you develop this desire, the spiritual aspiration to experience something that is everlasting. And you feel a kind of what we may call maybe a kind of divine discontent, a divine dissatisfaction. When you realize that everything is momentary, you feel a kind of divine dissatisfaction and also a desire for something everlasting. So that this divine spiritual dissatisfaction is the actual implication of the word dukkha when Buddha used the word Chattvari Arya Satyani, Four Noble Truths. For those who are highly evolved, for them this world, this physical body, and again all the wonderful things that we enjoy normally, these things are a problem, a burden, something that we should get out of. Not for the common people. That's why, in fact, in one of the sutras in Yoga Sutra, Patanjali, Parinama Tapa Samskara Dukkaihi Guna Visheshasya Dukkhameva Sarva Vivekinaka. So, in a way, Patanjali also used the word Sarvam Dukkha, Dukkham. Vivekinaka Sarvam Dukkham. For Vivekis, for those who are evolved persons, all these things constitute dukkha. Again, dukkha doesn't mean something that produces grief, the word that you find in Oxford or Chambers Dictionary, not at all. It is not the dukkha that in the dictionary meaning. It is, as I mentioned, dukkha here means a kind of divine, inner, transcendental dissatisfaction when you realize that all that you have got in this world, your health, body, everything, power, wealth, everything is momentary. You will be very happy, it will be perfectly okay for a common person who doesn't have any spiritual ambition. For the normal person, without any spiritual ambition, is perfectly okay. It is not dukkha. It is dukkha only for those who are highly evolved. Am I audible?
Yes, Maharaj, you are.
Yeah, okay, because there is seems to be a problem. Okay. So for people who are not necessarily spiritually oriented, it's not dukkha. That's why here the Dhammapada tells you that those who are not endowed with mindfulness or a mindful state, for them everything they are in a way they are moving towards death. But this is the view from a higher transcendental perspective, because it is dukkha. So that's a very important point, remember. That's why such wise people, that is dhyayino, those who are meditating, that is dhyayino, and they are persistent, sadhadiga nityam, that they are practicing mindfulness, they are very persistent and very firm in their effort, they reach nirvana, the supreme spiritual goal. And they are wise, they are meditative, they are very steadfast, they attain nirvana, supreme peace. This fourth verse is Uddanavado Satimato Chigasma Nisamagarino Samyadassa Cha Dhammajivino Appamatassa Yaso Bhuvi. So here there is a description given here. So those who they are continuously increasing in their persistent effort, they are evolving through this path of mindfulness, and they have become mindful. In the sense, they are fully established in mindfulness, and they also do appropriately, they also do only good deeds. When they become mindfulness, when they are established in mindfulness, they are able to restrain themselves from all negative impulses. So naturally their actions also become pure. Such people, what happens mentioned is, they live like a pool, like an island. They live their own life because they are able to restrain themselves. They are able to live a very righteous life. So that's why, like a deep pool is mentioned here, like a deep pool. Uddanavato Satimato Sujigasma Nisamkarino. So they naturally have an instinct to do everything properly. Again, how mindfulness leads to ethical perfection. And the commentaries and the other discourses, and also in Buddha's the rebirth stories you find, there is one character, is Tathagata Buddha himself, Bodhisattva. For this 443 rebirth story Jataka tales, there is, in each of these tales, there is one character, that is Bodhisattva, Buddha in his previous life. One character who is wise, who is good-natured, who is compassionate, who is unaffected, who is always peaceful, tranquil, a perfect equanimity of mind. That character is Buddha. Now that character is like an island. For him, sacrificing his own life for others, you can find there are stories. I don't want to go into the story of the great monkey king, the story of, there are many instances which I am not going to discuss the details. In many of these stories, the Bodhisattva, that is the previous Buddha in the story, he practices enormous needs of self-sacrifice, renunciation, laying down his own life for others. So all these are instances because they are established in mindfulness and they don't do anything wrong because they are always aware of everything, so they are able to remain detached from everything. Then there is a fifth one is Uddanin appamadena sayamena damena cha deepam kairatha methaviyam odho namikirti. Such a person, that is that the meditative person, his spiritual meditative energy is aroused, he becomes established in self-restraint, mindfulness and discipline. So, he is compared to an island which remains intact, which is undisturbed by any storm, by any floods or anything. Such a person, he is roused, he is enlightened by mindfulness, by self-restraint, by self-contentment. He makes for himself an island which remains safe, untouched by the huge floodwaters around. So this again, when you practice mindfulness, you are creating around you an aura of protection. When you practice self-restraint, you are free from any kind of entanglement. So whatever happens around you doesn't have any negative impact on you. So you are compared to an island, somebody who remains unaffected. Awareness but detached. These are two important points. Sati Upattana Sutra. Sati means smriti, awareness. Upattana means being established. So, awareness and at the same time being established in the awareness of the momentariness of everything, you are able to detach yourself. So when you remember whatever we may have, when we remember that it's not going to last long, a wise man will be able to, well, I want something which is more sensible, which is more everlasting. I should not run after something that exists for some time and disappears next moment. It becomes something else. Kshanika or momentary. So that will help, that will prompt you to look for something more meaningful. So this is possible when you are aware of the momentariness and when your awareness of the momentariness of empirical phenomena helps you to remain detached for the empirical phenomena. So both are equally important. Without awareness, you won't be able to practice detachment. Without detachment, you will not be able to remain like an island, practicing self-restraint, unaffected by the flood waters around. That's why in this fifth one, such a person, he is making for himself an island. Deepam, Kairatha Medhavi. He's an enlightened person. Medhavi is the Sanskrit word often used, somebody who is enlightened, who has got pure intelligence. So Medha is literally in Sanskrit, it means Grindadharana Shakti. I mean the ability to retain whatever you study. But this is possible only when your mind is pure. Like, if the blackboard is clean, you can write in clear letters, visible for everyone. If it is dirty and full of different lines or cracks, then whatever you write on a blackboard will not be visible. So when our mind is pure, then we are able to remember everything. So here Medha means something even more. Medha means purified intellect. Intellect purified by the practice of mindfulness. That's why Deepam Kairatha Medhavi Yam Odho Namagiriti. Such a person is making himself, for himself he is making a deepa, means an island. And that island remains safe against the flood waters. What are the flood waters? The world around, empirical phenomena around, which again can create desire, clinging, samskaras, vasanas, which again can become the cause of samsara. Samsara means moving around this wheel of birth, then suffering and enjoying, sukha, dukkha and so on, accumulating samskaras, being reborn, dying and being reborn, and this continuation of this wheel of life and death. It is called samsara, flood waters. So anyone who practices mindfulness, he doesn't accumulate any new samskaras. So he will have no rebirth, he will attain nirvana. Very, very profound ideas you can find here. Pamada manuyujjanti bala dumedhino jana apamadancha medhavi dhanam setham va. Those who are ignorant, those who are not intelligent, those who are foolish, the unwise, they engage in the opposite of mindfulness, it is called, pamada. Pamada is the opposite of lack of mindfulness. Apamada means mindfulness, means wakefulness. Pamada means being ignorant, being foolish, and not being aware of it. So lack of awareness, lack of mindfulness. So those who do not practice mindfulness, that is pamadam anujjanti, balaha. The bala means, that same what in Sanskrit mandaha means bala means. Those who are childish in their intelligence, those who are ignorant of higher wisdom, in that sense. Bala, dumedhino jana, they are not wise. They don't have supreme intelligence. So what happens is, those who are ignorant, those who do not have intelligence, they pursue the opposite of mindfulness, apamada. But a wise person, apamada means the wise, those who are practicing mindfulness. Pamada, apamada in Dhammapada means pramada, apramada. Sanskrit pramada. Pramada can mean something being erratic, something wrong, being caught by desires, doing something in a negative manner, that can be pramada. Stumbling upon on some serious mistake or error can be pramada. Opposite is free from all this, apamada means. So those who are wise, they follow the path of mindfulness or wakefulness. And he is able to guard his mindfulness as his greatest treasure. So what is the greatest treasure is mentioned here? Mindfulness. That is the greatest wealth. Being able to remain aware and also being able to remain detached. Ya pamadam anujjetha ma kamaradi santhavam apamatto hi jayanto papnodi vipulam sukham. That is the seventh one. So we should not engage in pramada. That means being entangled, being bound to external things, being a slave of negative impulses. And we should not take delight in sensual pleasures. The mindful person, the meditator, attains great happiness. Ya pamadam anujjetha ma Kamaridistandhagam appamattohi dhyayanto papnodi vipulam sukham. So, the person who practices mindfulness, who is practicing meditation, who acquires this bliss. So, I will, of course, we will discuss later in next class. How mindfulness works, I already mentioned to some extent. As I mentioned earlier, every problem in our life becomes a problem when you are not aware of the nature of the problem. When you are aware of the nature of the problem, then the problem is not a problem. The problem can surprise us, then becomes a real problem. When something that we are already expecting happens to take place, it will not shock us. Like that, when we are established in perpetual awareness of the momentary nature of the empirical phenomena, external phenomena as well as inner mental experiences, sukha, dukkha, pain and pleasure, negative and positive impulses, wealth and poverty, and all these raga, dvesha, extreme liking, extreme dislike, and so on. All these happened because we somehow attach a kind of a degree of permanence to whatever we experience. Otherwise, an unhappy experience should not make us miserable. If we are also aware of the fact that that unhappy experience is momentary, so then it will not shock us. So, when we are not practicing mindfulness, we are attaching non-momentariness, what you call permanence, to empirical experiences. So, when we attach permanence to empirical experiences, when something unhappy happens, somehow we think that unhappy situation is going to remain permanent. If you can remember, it is also momentary. It is also in a flux. It will change for something else after some time. Then what happens is not a problem. So we become attached when we wrongly assume it is permanent. That is pamada. Pamada means the absence of mindfulness, the absence of vigilance, the absence of alertness, spiritual alertness. That's what it means, pramada. The pramada may not be able to give a very satisfactory translation into any language. Many of these technical words have assumed certain meanings and implications in the commentaries written on philosophical classics. So very often, those terms, those words assume certain meanings and implications which cannot be translated into a single word in any language, into any other language. So when we remain caught by attaching permanence to things which are by the very nature momentary, what happens is it appears to be a great miserable experience when something unhappy happens. There's a very joyful experience when something pleasant or happy situation happens. So the only way out is to practice awareness of the momentary nature of everything in this world. And this is possible by combining awareness and also total detachment. Detachment again is not cutting off, not at all. Being established in the awareness of their impermanent nature. That's what it means. Detachment again is not cutting off. When you are not aware of a problem, when the problem happens, it's a really big problem. When you're anticipating a problem, when this happens, it doesn't shock you. So detachment is not cutting off. Rather, it means you remain watchful. What do you call? You're a subject You are an observer. But you are not attached. That's the real meaning. Anyway, now we can have an interaction. After a long time, we are receiving the class. I'm very happy to meet our friends once more after a long time. Thank you. We can have interaction. Most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj. Before we get to the first question, for those who might be listening on Facebook or only getting audio on YouTube, the internet was slow and was sometimes working, sometimes not. Of course, this is recorded, so it'll be archived and accessible. But I'm checking YouTube to the greatest extent possible for the questions that might appear there. Another thing, Maharaj, when we give credit to the mindfulness movement, you cited the original text, which we believe in the online chat is the Satipatthana Sutta. And we wanted to confirm that that is the correct text.
Yeah, Satipatthana Sutta, yeah. We were discussing Dhammapada, second chapter, but I was mentioning while introducing mindfulness, I have to mention because Satipatthana Sutta is the foundation, the most important foundational text of mindfulness. But before going to Satipatthana Sutta, I wanted to introduce the second chapter of this Dhammapada. It's called Appamada Boggo. Appamada means this being in a state of alertness, vigilance, mindfulness, wakefulness, and so on. You are always wakeful. That is mindfulness. So after this, we'll go to Satipatthana Sutta. That's the plan. Okay?
Yes, that's clear, Maharaj, that the Satipatthana Sutta was the introductory portion before you got to Dhammapada. So that was clear. We just wanted to clear that up because the question was raised. David, you had your hand up first, but you took it down. But if you're still there, or if you chime in now, I'll call you first because you had your hand up. But if you stepped away, I'll go to the second hand, which is Mark. Go ahead, Mark.
Pranam, Swamiji.
Yeah. Namaste.
I appreciate the idea of impermanence and that things are always changing and that eventually everything is going to disappear. The concept that I wanted to ask you about was the idea of free will versus destiny. Is there anything in Buddhism that talks about those two concepts? Like, if something happens to me, is it because of my destiny? Am I able to do something because of my destiny? Or is it I have free will to do whatever I want?
And Buddhism believes in the doctrine of law of karma and the doctrine of reincarnation. So very important. So there is always a strong emphasis on the effect of your previous karmas on your present life. That's a very, very important tenet of Buddhism, law of karma. So there is an element of, I don't say fatalism, actually it's not fatalism. You can, if the present is a result of the past, then you can build your own future. So law of karma doesn't mean a kind of empty fatalism. Law of karma actually supports the idea of free will. Because if you are going through certain experiences in this life, and that's due to your previous karmas, actions and the results in previous life, or sometime maybe in this life itself in your previous occasions, then it means it gives room for you to change your own destiny by doing good actions now. So law of karma is the very opposite of fatalism. Belief in kind of blind, omnipotent destiny. It is the very opposite. Law of karma, law of karma on the one hand, you have already prepared a background for what you are right now. On the other hand, it also allows you to prepare your background for your future. So both belief in destiny and a greater emphasis on freedom, both you find in Buddhism. And this is also true in Vedanta also. I mean, I want to mention, of course, forgot to mention, I did a retreat, Labor Day retreat some years ago. It was on Satipatthana Sutta. In the Labor Day retreat, I think it's 4 or 5 classes we did some years ago, before COVID. Satipatthana Sutta was the text that we covered. There were at least 5 classes on the text itself. This is years ago. You can find on YouTube videos, you can find. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Yeah.
And thanks for that reminder. Those classes are on the internet, Maharaj. That's great.
Yeah.
I also did not recall that, but that's wonderful.
Yeah.
See Gopinath, great to see you.
Yeah.
Okay. Swamiji, you use the word detachment as one of the qualities of apramada.
Yeah.
Would it be right to call it vairagya? Would it be right to use that word?
At some point, you can use words interchangeably in different systems of philosophy. The vairagya is also a word used frequently in Buddhist scriptures. But here, it's not vairagya as we understand in Vedanta. Here you are not giving up anything. Vairagya implies you are renouncing, you are giving up something, you are totally rejecting it. But here you are watching, but you are also remembering it is impermanent. So there is an element of vairagya, renunciation in it, because you are not caught. But at the same time, you suppose you are meditating and so let's say some negative thoughts come to your mind. You tell your mind, your negative thoughts coming, oh, you also join me meditation. You can tell your own mind, you are thinking, so you have some negative thoughts are all most welcome. You find negative thoughts will disappear. Because, when you welcome negative thoughts, you are detaching yourself from it. Welcoming what means? It's no more negative. You are not bothered, you remain unaffected by the negativity of negative thoughts. So it's no more negative for you. Nature of the mind, it's the nature of the mind to project thoughts which are not helpful. So you remember, it's the nature of the mind. And these thoughts come, all right, fine, that's okay. So you welcome negative thoughts. Actually, it is a kind of practicing detachment. Because you are aware of the fact that negative thoughts are part of human mind. You cannot close your mind to negative or positive thoughts. They come as memories. Well, you are already aware of this essential nature of the mind to throw up negative thoughts. When you are aware of this, you detach. When you are aware of, let's say, suppose you feel you get slightly getting angry with somebody, and it's absolutely for no reason. But you are aware of this unnecessary, meaningless, senseless anger coming of your mind. Then what happens? You are separating yourself from the anger. And you don't identify with the anger. Your anger will disappear. Subject-object gap is created when you objectify, when you witness your own mind, your own anger. And that objectification is impossible unless you are aware of the negative thoughts coming, and also you detach yourself from it.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. One more point is very important. So, Buddha himself practiced this. When Buddha sat there for meditating the Bodhi tree, all these thoughts came to his mind, all the previous rebirth things. He watched, all right, and remained unaffected. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you.
I was walking by a Buddhist center in San Francisco this afternoon.
Yeah, oh, wonderful.
And I was struck by their signage out in front. It seemed almost poetic for our current times. It said, peace inside. Next line, peace outside. Third line, world peace.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. It's a great teaching from Buddha, you know. Buddhism has made a great contribution to spiritual psychology. So people may think Buddhism is a kind of agnosticism. They even mistake it for some kind of atheism. But Buddhism is, even without God or without belief in a created God, a religion can create, world peace, can make contribution to world peace. It's very interesting.
David had a question, but he lowered his hand, so it may have already been asked. And we're not getting questions from the YouTube feed because of those internet problems. Those folks have been invited to join the Zoom. And there are no more hands on Zoom. So, Maharaj, did you want to proceed?
Okay, we'll continue.
Over the materials?
We'll continue. We'll continue next week. Next week we'll continue. Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Yeah. We'll continue.
Welcome back, everybody.
Yeah.
And keep your questions and enthusiasm for next week. But there will be no class next week, correct? Because
I was thinking of continuing the class next week. That will be, I think.
Following the Durga Puja?
Yeah, I was thinking. What do you say? Because Durga Puja is on Saturday,
Yes.
and this class is on 6th of. On
6 p.m. the next
yeah.
day.
Well, in the announcement paper, it's mentioned there will be no class. Anyway, in that case, of course, we need not burden because a number of people will be engaged in puja activities on 27th. So if we hold a class on 28th, many won't be able to attend. In that case, we can cancel the class for 28th. So I'm reading the announcement. There will be no Yogachara class next week due to Durga Puja. The next class on Fridays, every Friday we have a class on Vedanta text, the Yogachara. That will be at 7:30 p.m. It's an in-person class in the old temple every Friday, 7:30 in the evening. The next class, next week, the class will be suspended. That means from now the next class will be on October the 3rd, 7:30 p.m. And as you mentioned, maybe it's better to cancel the class on October 5th Sunday. October 28th Sunday. That means
September 28th, Maharaj.
Yeah, September 28th. Thank you, September 27th. So the 8th. Next class will be October 5th. Please remember.
Maharaj, I'm looking at the paper announcement from the society's, that would be the September flyer calendar.
Yeah.
And it does not cancel this class. It cancels the Friday class, but not this Sunday class. So at least as scheduled, this one is on for next week. Of course, it may conflict with the, Jewish high holidays,
okay.
But it is scheduled to continue next Sunday.
So what is your suggestion?
I say let's keep going.
Okay. Then we'll have class on Sunday, 6 p.m., September 28th. Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you. Namaste. Namaste. Om Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Thank you everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj.